This video is going to be about Apple dropping support for Intel CPUs and also which platform will be the better platform 3 years in the future. As you folks can read for yourself, Apple is bragging about the performance of their graphics processor. Is their graphics processor all that great? That I don't know, but it is worth mentioning in this video, and here's why. Here we see the CPUs and the GPUs I've used throughout the years. The Pentium D, the Core 2 Dual, and the Core 2 Quad were purchased before Adobe Premiere Pro could make use of the graphics processor. When I purchased the i7, at that point in time, the Mercury Playback engine was out on the market. As you can tell, I have a GT240 there. That is the original graphics card I used with the original i7 Linfield. The i7 Linfield had a little bit more power than what the GT240 had. The GT240 was kind of the weakest link, so I upgraded to the GeForce GTX 650 Ti. As you can imagine, once I did that, the GeForce GTX 650 Ti was more powerful than my Linfield processor. So then I got a Haswell i7 processor, and that Haswell CPU was kind of a little bit more powerful than the GeForce GTX 650 Ti. It was a pretty good match, but I ended up getting a GeForce GTX 1060. As you can imagine, the GTX 1060 was a little bit more powerful than my Haswell CPU. So then when I got the Core i9 processor, the GTX 1060 was kind of the weakest link, and I went out and bought an RTX 2070. The purpose of this portion of the video is to let people know you wouldn't want to have a quad-core CPU and an RTX 2080 Ti. That system would be mismatched. At the same time, you wouldn't want an i9 9900K CPU and a GeForce GTX 1050 for your graphics card. That would also be a mismatch. Is Apple using 50% of the CPU die for the GPU and the other 50% for the CPU? That I don't know. I'm not sure if Apple ever released that information. I want to say that once you get the i7 processor, even if it's just a Linfield i7 processor and a GeForce GTX 650 Ti, you have a pretty powerful editing system. You're not going to be able to play 4K back at full resolution, but you could drop down to quarter resolution. That being said, how many people are really viewing 4K at full resolution on an external 4K monitor? I'm making this video to let people know that the Apple CPUs in another 3 years from now will probably not be as powerful as a 32-core AMD CPU matched with an RTX 3080 graphics processor. If they have the computing power of, say, a 6-core CPU and an RTX 2060, you can edit video just fine with that type of performance. Granted, if you want to edit 8K, you're probably going to have to drop down to quarter resolution, but you can still get your editing done. I should mention that the new Sony camera and the new Canon camera have a version of H.264 that is difficult to play back, even on a 16-core CPU. However, the iPad Pro can play those video codecs back. I imagine the Bionic chip has some type of module similar to Intel's QuickSync, but probably a little bit better than Intel's QuickSync. I don't doubt next year Intel's QuickSync will get a revamp, allowing the Intel chips to play back the odd H.264 codecs with ease. I myself think it is probably a good decision for Apple to ditch the Intel CPUs. The reason I say that is I think Apple is putting more emphasis on the GPU as opposed to the CPU, and we can only hope Intel in the not so distant future will start dedicating more of the CPU die for the GPU, because Premiere Pro really does need a GPU to get any type of performance. Just relying on the CPU, Premiere Pro can't hardly do anything. Apple has let us know they can add more cores to their Bionic chips. Will it stop at 12 core, 16 core, or 32 core? That I don't know. Will Intel be able to add 12 core, 16 core, and 32 core CPUs to their mobile processors? It's possible. I would say rather than add 16 cores or 32 cores, I would much rather see them only have 8 cores and then dedicate the rest of that CPU die to have a really ass kicking graphics processing unit. When I make that statement, I'm talking about the razor thin laptops and the Microsoft Surface Pro and other PC type tablets that you're not going to have a dedicated graphics card for. On the other hand, if you have an ass kicking gaming laptop that's almost an inch thick and you have a dedicated graphics card, Intel has to manufacture mobile CPUs that don't have any graphics processor built in. I admit there will be Apple users that'll want to use Xeon CPUs as well as dedicated graphics card, and that's why some people wonder, will they still use Intel for the Mac Pro? Nobody knows for sure. I don't think the Bionic chip can make use of PCI Express slots, but they could probably make a chipset that would make use of PCI Express slots. Would Apple make a Bionic chip without a dedicated GPU on the CPU die if they knew it was going to be used in the Mac Pro? I think the Apple Bionic chips will work great in their laptops, as well as the Mac Mini and the iMac. The Mac Pro is the only device that's really questionable. I want to end this video by stating in another 3 years from now, the CPUs from Apple, AMD, and Intel will be better than what they are today. I think they'll all be pretty powerful and be competitive with one another. I also want to say in another 3 or 4 years from now, I might be doing my editing on a laptop or a Microsoft Surface Pro. For people that want to edit 8K at full 8K resolution, there will still be a need for desktop computers.